All right, everybody, it is 12 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us for the 2019 all-member virtual meeting. I'm here with Rick Collins, our brand new international president. Rick?
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be. Happy to be here.
So for everybody who just tuned in, we're going to have you muted for the entire webinar. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand or send us the question. Ideally, send us the question through the question box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. And when we get to the end and we have some time for questions, we'll go through and see if you still want to ask them or if Rick's already covered what you wanted to say. So until then.
And if for some reason the audio is not good for you, send us a note as well, okay?
There's a chat box as well.
All right. Ready? Aim, fire. Let's go. All right. Welcome and thanks for joining me, Megan Jones, and who's the executive director of ICEAA, and your ICEAA colleagues today. Megan and I are excited to have the opportunity to connect with you and hope that today's discussion bears fruit for you and us. The objective of today's meeting is pretty straightforward. Ideally, today represents the start of an open, constructive dialogue that produces tangible outcomes that benefit our members, the association, and more generally and importantly, our profession. The board and I have some definite ideas about the path forward, but recognize that it's critical to hear other perspectives. We have a lot of participants today, but I'm hoping that you feel free to contribute to the conversation today or as a near-term follow-up. That said, I have a fair amount of material to share with you, so depending on how we're doing time-wise, I reserve the right to defer questions and comments. Every organization, regardless of whether it's profit-motivated or not, needs a compass in the form of principles that guide its course. In 2013, during my first elected term to the board, and just prior to SCIA and ISPA merging to become ICEAA, two ICEAA chapter presidents who were early in their cost analysis careers, Dan Mask of Kalman and Eric Nardi of Air Force Aeronautical Systems Command, and I developed ICEAA's first strategic plan. A defining moment in that several-month effort was creating a vision statement, but we didn't stop at one, we created two. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to do strategic planning, I think it's worth emphasizing why the right vision statement is critical and absolutely more than words on a piece of paper or wall. A vision statement is the anchor of any strategic plan. It outlines what an organization would like to ultimately achieve and gives purpose to the existence of the organization. That's one. Two, a vision statement is a descriptive picture of a desired future state, a declaration of where you're headed. Three, a vision statement is a long-term view of what the organization wants to be or how it wants the world in which it operates to be, i.e., an idealized view of the world. Good vision statement should be short, simple, and have ambition, certainly shorter than this explanation. And a good vision statement is a memorable and inspirational summary that describes the reason for existence as an organization, one that will help to motivate existing members and even attract high-quality new ones. I think that both of these visions have and will stand the test of time. Now, a final word here, because this is critical. It sets the stage for I think everything else from my perspective as the president of the organization. Every one of us on any given day should be conscious of delivering increasing value to stakeholders who rely on our analytical products and resulting advice. Regardless of how important a factor cost is to decision makers inside and outside the government, not delivering the right value has led to individuals and organizations becoming irrelevant. Ask current and former employees of the Naval Center for Cost Analysis, which is by direction downsized from a staff north of 40 to one south of 20, and will likely shrink further and voluntarily as remaining staff jump from a sinking ship. There are a variety of reasons why ICEAA should be doing whatever it can to help grow our profession, most notably because growth translates to opportunities for professional advancement of our members. In addition to developing vision statements, we also developed a mission statement, which defines at a high level our business objectives and approach to reach those objectives. Similar to the previous slide, I chose to underscore some of the words for emphasis' sake. All right, now we're gonna shift gears to strategic plan. Next slide. ICEAA's strategic plan for 2019 to 21 has 3 interrelated goals, where a goal is simply a broad primary desired outcome. First goal, technical excellence. Each goal has a supporting set of objectives or measurable steps we will take to achieve the goal. These are the objectives for technical excellence. In the interest of time, I'm not going to address each of these, but would appreciate you thinking about, 1, which objectives constitute value to you personally, 2, any specific ideas you have related to making these a reality, and 3, if and how you'd like to help. I should note that Dan Harper of MITRE is an example of an ICEAA member who has stepped up during the last few months to make it easy for ICEAA members to leverage the web-based CostFacts platform that was developed and is managed by MITRE and open to any and all ICEAA members who want to explore the benefits relative to information sharing, dialogue and collaboration on a particular topic, etc. I know that some of you have already joined CostFacts and are benefiting from it. In fact, yesterday I had the pleasure of speaking with an ICEAA member who works for the auto industry in Toronto, who mentioned that he's been following and contributing to a machine learning discussion via CostFacts. Here are the remaining objectives for technical excellence. Please note the reference to innovative in each of these objectives. Also, in relation to Objective J, today is the perfect opportunity to make you aware that Karen Marekis of Boeing is kicking off an informal ICEAA machine learning working group in October and promises the details will soon follow. I trust that Karen welcomes you sending her an email to express your interest. She can be reached at karen.maurikis, MOURIKS @boeing.com.
And if anybody didn't catch that, you can just email the ICEAA office and we'll pass you on to Karen.
Thank you, Megan. The second strategic goal, collaboration. This slide addresses the objectives for the Create a Community of Collaboration goal. Some of you may have participated in the first session of what's called the Engage, Collaborate, Advance webinar series. This April session was actually a 2-part experiment. Part 1 of the experiment was a panel discussion amongst 4 notable government reps. I did the moderating on the subject of accelerated acquisition. This session was attended by nearly 100 people, and something on the order of 125 actually signed up for it. Part 2 of the experiment turned out to be less of a follow-on discussion than I would have liked via CostFacts, but that's okay for now. Based on the demand of the first webinar, the first webinar generated, we are due, actually probably overdue, for a second one, and I welcome any ideas you have regarding topics that represent common needs and challenges. The third and final strategic goal is create a community of relevance. As you can see, the theme across these interrelated objectives is first and foremost understanding what constitutes value to you, the members. Based on my earlier comments emphasizing growing the profession, I urge you to think about the value to you personally in this context of growing the profession. In closing this section of the brief on the strategic plan, I would characterize the objectives presented in the last few slides as a Chinese menu of things that the board views important. However, in the interest of being realistic about what can be accomplished, everything can't be most important. This is exactly why I established some priorities that will be featured later in the presentation. I'm sure it hasn't been lost on you that we are 12 slides, and Megan, how many minutes into the conversation?
10, you're killing
10. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is uncharacteristic of Rip Collins. Anyway, I'm sure it hasn't been lost on you that we're this many slides into the presentation, and the only number that has come out of my mouth is the Engage, Collaborate, Advance webinar attendance and registration. Have no fear, though. The time has come for some real numbers intended to provide some context for the priorities that I've established for the association. So, the first slide depicts the composition of our current membership at a macro level, please. We have just over 1,500 members, 84% of whom are in the U.S., the remainder of whom are in a variety of countries far and wide, 20 to be precise. As we continue to do our version of peeling the onion as we move from left to right, there are some things that jump out at me, and I suspect you. First, as indicated in the top call-out box, the U.S. government accounts for only 15% of total membership. While an eye-opening statistic on its own, the reality becomes starker when current U.S. government membership is compared to the approximate size of the cost community. Now, we could debate this 1,500 number. Note that I've indicated approximate here. I've got other estimates that say it's closer to 1,300, but I think for the purpose of this point, it's good enough. There are likely a number of factors driving this reality, the most important being the fact that unlike many private sector organizations which cover employee membership dues, the government typically won't, in fact can't. I view this as an opportunity for ICEAA to understand what constitutes value to government cost analysts and determine how to most effectively deliver that value. That said, I also realize that the same applies to the membership at large, since I'm confident that many of our current private sector members would not continue to be members if their employers didn't cover the dues. As indicated in the bottom call-out box, thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that jumps out at me is the OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, i.e. the Boeings, Lockheeds, Raytheons, 8% share of total membership. I don't have any figures regarding the size of the OEM cost community, and certainly recognize that I need to be cautious in using the general term cost community in reference to OEMs, but I'm confident there are lots of engineers, logisticians, et cetera, at Boeing, Lockheed, so on and so forth, who do their best cost analyst imitation on any given business day and are not members. I have some anecdotal evidence indicating ICEAA membership in some of these companies has gone down as a result of policy changes regarding membership due reimbursement. I also have anecdotal evidence that key leaders who actively supported ICEAA membership have moved up and out, and their successors didn't follow in suit, i.e. didn't continue the advocacy that had once been there. It is essential for leaders outside and inside the government to understand ICEAA's value proposition. Anyway, no different than what I said about government membership, OEM membership is also an opportunity for ICEAA. There'll be more on seizing these opportunities later. finally, before we leave this slide, I should note that the 2018 membership growth was 4%, and 2019 membership growth has been 8% to date. We're going the right direction after several years of what would be best characterized as some stagnation.
Do you want to talk about the international breakdown?
I think that speaks for itself. Although I will say that, no, actually it doesn't speak for itself. Thank you, Megan, for the prompt. I think the fact that we're seeing on a percentage basis, equality here, a difference with the U.S. is there has been, and I'll discuss this a little bit later. There has been significant government mandate in some of these countries, particularly Canada, that has led to support for membership, and I do believe, although there's someone on the phone from Canada who wants to correct me on this, I do believe that membership dues have in some way been covered by the government, but I could be wrong there. But I think the long and short of it is there's been a very strong message from government leaders, and whether it's been the government paying for the memberships or the members paying for the memberships, there's been a move to do that.
May I?
You may.
The ICEAA Canada chapter has their annual workshop. This year's is starting next week, and as part of the registration fees, they include a year of membership. And also anecdotally, I've heard from U.S. government folks that say it's a lot easier for them to get one check that covers both registration for a workshop and membership, which is the direction that Canada's been taking.
Okay.
For those of you who are listening and want to lump your registration in with your membership, we do offer for everybody who signs up at the non-member rate for the ICEAA workshop, you'll get a code for a free year afterwards. So if you sign up at the non-member rate, you'll be taken care of.
All right. So if you're government, you sign up at the.
If you're anybody.
All right. Can you sign up at the government rate and get that deal?
There's a government non-member rate, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Okay. Man, the deals just keep getting better,
No
Megan. Golly. All right. Next slide, 14. Here's a snapshot of the U.S. organizations with the largest concentration of members, 20 plus and 10 plus on the government side. There's a reason why the organizations at the top of each list are on top. Leadership, commitment to ICEAA membership. There are numbers in the industry table that represent 100% or close to 100% participation as you go down this list for some of the smaller companies. That's a result of the leadership in those companies making this commitment. So if we move to the right side of the page, so the Air Force number does not represent 100% membership for Air Force cost analysts. This number would not be near as high were it not for the vision and efforts several years ago of Rich Hartley, who was the former SES director of the Air Force Cost Analysis Agency. I mean, he actively encouraged Air Force cost analysts to leverage what ICEAA had to offer, including certification. Okay. So continuing our role here with numbers, you get it while you can, folks, because we're gonna shift back to slides that are mostly words here in a few slides. This slide depicts the largest chapters inside and outside the U.S. Though not shown, each of these chapters fall into one of 7 regions, each of which has an elected director who serves and represents his and her respective chapters. The fact that the DC and Southern California chapters top the list is likely no surprise to you, given the concentration of of government organizations in those areas, and you know, in the case of Southern California, defense firms that have cost analysts. As noted in red, there are a number of members who, for whatever reasons, are not affiliated with a chapter. If you are one of those people, or you work with people who might be in the same boat, please do what you can to rectify this situation. There's information on the screen of where you need to go to do that. You know, why? Well, lack of affiliation means you and the chapter could be missing out on beneficial chapter events that would provide learning, collaboration, and networking opportunities. And as Kelly Scarborough, who's the Region 5 director, reminded me, opportunities to volunteer exist as well if you were tied into the chapter and getting, you know, chapter propaganda. In the interest of full disclosure, there are U.S. chapters not shown on this list that are dormant. Regional directors, with Megan's very able and enthusiastic help, are going to do their best to work with chapter presidents to revive these chapters, because, you know, there are benefits to be had, and we're not ready to throw in the towels. Although, you know, I think there are chapter presidents out there that are clearly frustrated at, you know, their inability, and there's some good reasons for not being able to, you know, to gel.
Can I comment on that?
You may.
Chapter presidents, for those of you who are listening, you guys have the hardest job of the whole volunteer thing. You're boots on the ground, trying to get people to be interested in something in a world where it is 1,000 times easier not to be interested in anything. So don't forget ever that we're here for you. And if you're a member in one of those areas, if you go to the ICEAA website, go to the chapters page, you can see where all of the chapters are. If you live in that area and you want to take on that heavy burden of trying to get that chapter going, let me know. I'm here to help.
Thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
So shifting to the I in ICEAA, as previously mentioned, there are ICEAA members in 20 countries. Highlight the fact that Canada has been the fastest growing chapter relative to the entire association over the last couple of years. As I alluded to earlier, the impetus for this growth was a government-wide mandate to better understand and more seriously consider cost in any and all government decision-making at all levels of the government there. Not just the federal level, but the provincial level, so on and so forth. This mandate, plus some forward-looking, energetic Canadian government and industry cost leaders, participated in a movement to professionalizing cost estimating and analysis that continues today. In fact, as many of you know, and as Megan alluded to, the ICEAA Canada chapter is holding its 5th annual workshop in Ottawa next week. The interest in this event has grown significantly over its history, attracting over 150 attendees this year. I'd like to use this opportunity to recognize and congratulate the individuals who led the way to this continuing success. Peter Weldon, Aaron Barkle, Brenti Gregari, Mike Leone, Alan Meyer, and Alan Weldon. Well done, ladies and gents.
Mm-hmm. Oops, sorry.
Yep. Now that I've got you all excited about, I got you all excited with these numbers, let's tap the brakes momentarily for a look at a list of ICEAA's key products and services today, and I underscore today. It's possible that some of you value something you're getting from ICEAA that's not reflected in this list. If so, it'd be useful to know what that is. For example, I did not include the ICEAA journal because it's not been published since when, Megan?
2016.
2016, and few people have asked what gives relative to the fact that they haven't seen it since 2016. So again, back to, you know, the organization delivering things that are of value. It would be interesting as you digest this list and think about what you get from ICEAA that's useful for us to know that.
Yeah, and send that along. If there's something that you guys value most, if we're not highlighting it, we can start giving it a lot more attention, and that would be great.
Yes. Now you could argue, well, do that. You guys should be doing that through a survey. Surveys are good things, but you know what? Don't hesitate to reach out. I am happy to talk to any one of you. Megan is the same, and a lot can happen in a conversation via an email exchange.
You never know what you can get unless you ask.
All right. So next slide. So what do we do with these products? So what do these products and services translate to revenue-wise? The workshop is accounted for over 60% of total revenue, and the combination of the workshop and membership dues represent just over 75% of revenue. So clearly, those two products dominate, and I think there's good reason for it. Relative to the workshop, note that we're on an upward trend relative to attendance, with 8% and 10% year-over-year growth the last 2 years. Well, in 17 and 18. Megan, what was the attendance in 2019?
480.
Okay. So not shown here because we haven't finished the year, but 480. So another good increase. Well, I'm on the subject of the workshop. The government attendance dipped on a percentage basis in 2018, and I come back to this subject because of the earlier discussion about government participation in membership. It increased to 39% for the 29 Tampa workshop. So we're about last conference about 40% government attendance. It's worth noting that this 30 to 40% figure, as you look across the years of government attendance, is double the 15% membership statistics. Of course, unlike memberships, the government is willing to foot the bill of the conferences. So that's certainly a factor in explaining that.
It's actually extra good when you think about there's only 1,500-ish to even pick from. How many we're getting at the conference is great.
I tend to like to think positively, Megan. So I'm gonna go with you on that. Okay. So finally on this slide, note that certification share of the total, although the percentages aren't shown there, has remained consistent, while CBOC share has managed to decline annually since 2015. I don't really have a concrete example for either of these, so a possible explanation for CBOC value is the fact that it's relatively easy to get the product without paying. Megan, please feel free to repeat for the group kind of your hypothesis here.
There's
on the fact that CBOC is on a downward slope.
I think it's just standard software. When you have a product that's out for a long time, particularly a software product, as I've said before, I'm a gamer. If the longer a video game's out, the less money it makes. Same thing with CBOC.
Yeah. So keep that thought in mind, because we're gonna return to that when we start talking about the priorities. All right, next slide. See how we're doing. All right, we're at 1229. So, speaking of certification, and to share these certification stats with you, it's encouraging to see the upward, until recently flattened trend in the percentage of members who've made the investment to get certified, all right, or their companies have made the investment to get them certified, or their organization has made the investment. Given the fact that our vision for the profession is, again, I'll repeat, to be a vital respected, indispensable, and growing underscored, community of practice composed of ICEAA certified professionals recognized as best in class, I'd like to do what we can to encourage and achieve a higher percentage. The 2018 to 2019 jump in PCEAs is very exciting to me because I believe that many, and perhaps most of these successful test takers are early career cost analysts who have actually passed both parts of the exam. And now we're waiting for their time and grade to become a CCEA. Well, so what's the impetus for the 39% jump? Perhaps it's simply ambitious 20-somethings recognizing that it makes sense to get this credential as early as possible. Or perhaps it's consulting firms recognizing the increasing trend in government solicitations requiring bidders to propose analysts who have either an ICEAA or government ICEAA certification in cost estimating. If in fact the government is driving the trend, then it's reasonable to argue that consulting firms are best served by having their experienced folks who haven't yet gotten certified to get certified so that they're in a position to be more flexible when it comes on bidding on jobs where there is a government requirement to bid people who have certifications. Whatever factors may explain the trend, and ICEAA absolutely should attempt to understand the root causes, it's an encouraging trend that I'd like to perpetuate. That is this this jump in certifications. Before we leave this slide, I'd like to mention the conversations that I've had with a couple of DoD senior cost leaders over the last several months indicates that there seems to be an appetite for discussions amongst the government stakeholders regarding ICEAA certification qualifying for DOEA cost estimating certification equivalency. I mean, there is in fact precedent here in that the Naval Postgraduate School's Masters in Cost Estimating and Analysis has been given equivalency for DOEA. And so I think this is an area that I'm going to want to explore further. Okay. So we're now entering the last section of the presentation, and hopefully you will, as you've listened to what I've said leading up to this, you're gonna see the logic in the story that I'm trying to convey here. So as noted in the final slide in the strategic plan section, and promised to address later, which is now, everything in our strategic plan is important, but everything can't be the most important. We absolutely have to prioritize if we're gonna accomplish something. So if you've had an opportunity to read the latest version of ICEAA World, you will see that the article that's in there that I wrote includes the fact that I've established 5 priorities for the board to work. Although they don't entirely speak for themselves, I'm not going to identify the specific work that each will entail as we talk about this slide, because I'm going to quickly pivot to two slides that discuss progress on each priority. I trust that the data I provided in the previous section helps you understand why I established 4 of these 5 priorities. That is 1, 2, 3, and 5. The impetus for priority 4 may be a little less obvious, but suffice it to say that Canada is not the only country striving to professionalize cost analysis, and this translates to a demand for ICEAA goodness, starting with a body of knowledge that speaks to them. The names of the accountable board members are shown in parentheses at the end of each of the priorities. So let's talk about progress to date on each of the priorities. And this is in, the period from July when, when the board officially took reins to today. So rota to priority 1. With the help of Quebec, who recently completed an effort competitively awarded in early 2019, we've started the hard work of improving CBOC content. For those of you who are not aware, the last board decided that it was time, actually well beyond time, to deliver CBOC via a more practical modern medium, specifically a wiki format that provides greater flexibility, functionality than the PowerPoint slide version of CBOC. In addition to evaluating the variety of content improvement required, we are studying the best way to deliver and sell CBOC. The same is true for the certification exam or exams. On a final note, as indicated by the asterisk and mentioned on the next slide, priorities 4 and 5 are certainly going to create their share of CBOC requirements too. Okay. Priority 2, close to 4 years ago, as a result of Brian Glauser, who worked at Galbraith and was the then president of ICEAA, his vision and willingness to lean forward. Let me restart here. So close to 4 years ago, as a result of Brian Glauser's vision and willingness to lean forward and engage in what has been a healthy collaboration with NESMA, a working group was formed to develop a body of knowledge to address the cost and schedule analysis needs of commercial IT firms that develop software. In large part due to the vision and diligence of 2 members of NESMA, Eric Vandervliet and Harold Van Harrigan. Sorry to either of you if you were on the phone and just listen to me butcher your last names. And the volunteerism of a variety of software cost and sizing subject matter experts. Today we have a 16-module body of knowledge that is about to undergo independent review and revision in preparation for creating a certification exam and making both the body of knowledge and exam available for paying customers next May. Now, this is a relatively aggressive schedule, but we are operating with a sense of urgency here because for some good reasons. I am confident that this product is going to open new doors for ICEAA, and in partnership with NESMA, we can create and grow a profession of commercial IT firm software cost analysts who are certified. It is my understanding, based on conversations with Eric and Brian, that there are on the order of 20 individuals abroad who are eagerly awaiting the opportunity to acquire this new certification. In fact, I should use this opportunity to advertise the fact that in the first, is the date the 7th, 8th, and 9th, Megan? I think, or the 8th and 9th.
7 through 9.
7 through 9 October, NESMA is sponsoring what is their annual conference in the Netherlands. And while they're not going to be offering the certification exam there, they are going to be teaching the modules there. And as many of you are aware who have attended the last 3 ICEAA conferences, these modules have been rolled out and taught at each of those conferences. But again, I want to say that it's important to know that we are about to undertake independent review and revision of the modules to get them to a form in which, ICEAA is comfortable with them being, put up on a for price basis. So in closing, I should say the following, that there is additionally an ICEAA and NESMA memorandum of understanding in place that was put in place during the last board that lays the important groundwork for formalizing the partnership by establishing an entity that would be known as ICEAA software. I'm not going to talk any more about that now, but wanted you to be aware of that. Okay. So, third priority. Based on conversations I've had with a cross-section of cost leaders in the defense, intelligence, and civil sectors, there is support for an all-government day at the next ICEAA conference. There's much to be worked out with these leaders relative to the right agenda, but I'm confident that this experiment will pay dividends for all, government, industry, since these leaders will participate in panel discussions open to all attendees Tuesday through Thursday, and will also pay dividends for ICEAA. The only downside that I see at this point is the fact that we're having to negotiate for facility space, because this was not planned when the contract was signed 2 years ago. So there are some constraints on that front. For example, the largest general session space on that all government day Monday, has a capacity of 150, but we've got 3 or 4 other rooms where we're going to be able to have sessions, and I'm really excited and optimistic about this being a kind of a new dimension in the conference. Priority 4. If you haven't already read Dale Sherman's article in the latest edition of ICEAA World on the options for a truly international version of CBOC, I highly recommend you do that. I'm not gonna go into the options that are laid out there, but suffice it to say, I think we determined that having separate national sections is the best way to move forward, and is going to be a real I think a real feather in ICEA's cap, and more importantly, the value to the folks outside of the U.S. All right. Finally, in addition to understanding the day-to-day work and needs of analysts at OEMs and how it differs from analysts in or supporting the government, I and other board members who work for OEMs are going to engage leaders directly. I'm particularly interested in learning how Carol Hibbard from Boeing's experience as a cost analyst, actually a former Air Force cost analyst, has helped her in each of her progressive assignments up to and including her current and very significant role. I believe there will be an important message in the story that opens some eyes about what you can do and where you can go with a solid grounding in cost. And oh, by the way, I'm sure that some of you are aware of other examples of cost analysts who have done good and are in leadership positions in significant organizations. And I have time and time again heard from those folks that there has been no substitute for having that cost background, because it puts them in a position to ask smart questions of their people, of their partners, and leads them to more informed decisions.
Those sound like some pretty good ICEAA World articles. We got to get a hold of those folks.
Well, we'll see what we can do. I agree with you. I think it could be something that's inspiring, not just for folks that are early in their career, but certainly people that are in the middle of their career and even beyond the middle of their career, as to what they can do with this background. So, thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me preface today's final topic with 2 comments that are necessary and certainly not earth-shattering. First, you've heard a lot of talk from me today, and talk is absolutely positively cheap. I recognize that. I'm excited about the path forward, but I realize that if I don't leave my mark in the form of positive change and progress, then I haven't performed the job I was elected to do. Second, good intentions without action leading to outcomes is no more than good intentions. They may make a well-intentioned individual feel good about him or herself, i.e., I volunteered, but if they don't translate to rolling up the sleeves, investing the time, and getting something accomplished, then why bother? So, I have chosen to convey my call to action in the form of 4 simply worded and hopefully easily understandable realities. Megan has given you prematurely, but that's okay, Megan.
Sorry.
You know what? We're going to practice more
Hey,
next time.
well, it's part of reality too, is to do it.
Yeah, I know. But we put in 4 what I hope are easily understandable, and you could say candid realities. But why not be candid? Reality 1. I think, our ability to achieve these priorities is going to depend on the quality of help that we get and other members, but you've got to be willing and able to help. Number 2, our ability to achieve these priorities requires the following of all volunteers and the board: laser focus. We have to identify what we're going to do and don't stray from that. It's easy to get distracted. Accountability. Do what you say you're going to do and when you say you're going to do it. And sense of urgency. It can be easy to say, I can put this, I can put this off, particularly if it's volunteer work. I will say that I stressed Megan out a little bit here. This meeting was originally scheduled and advertised as the 3rd of October, and I said, Megan, come on. I'd rather get out there, get this word out there, let people chew on it sooner than later. Let's do it in September. So I'm going to try to lead by example in these things. Reality, let's go to...
Just want to make sure my sense of urgency doesn't get in the way. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Reality 3. No one ever said volunteering is easy. We got lots of other stuff on our plate. I absolutely recognize that. And finally, last but not least, I think that volunteering for ICEAA can be rewarding, and I'd like to think fun. I've had a lot of fun. I've had my share of frustration, I will admit that, but I've had a lot of fun. Hopefully this list of what I view as rewards, resonate with you. The last, we refer back to the comments that I made, as we look at, this final reality. If you refer back to what I said early on about the strategic planning collaboration that I had with Dan and Eric, I think that proved to be great for all of us. I mean, we grew our network. We didn't really even know each other when we started that work. We're still in touch today. We had a really good learning experience. I think it was a particularly good experience for those guys because they had never done any formal strategic planning before. And, so I think for guys that were early, probably more mid-career analysts, it was a really great opportunity for them. So, yes, I'm selling here. If I wasn't doing some selling, I wouldn't be doing my job. But I truly believe that this list of things are real, and you will see the benefit. So, in closing, what was a lot of words, and I thank you for that, for listening, is I really appreciate your attention today. and sincerely hope that, these thoughts resonate. Megan and I, and for that matter, board members who you may be closer to than Megan and I, regional directors, chapter presidents, welcome your comments and observations. I encourage you to think about the particular objectives related to our technical excellence and collaboration goal and how you might want to contribute to one of these, all right? And in doing so, help us achieve one or more of these 5 priorities, because there's absolutely a linkage here. I think work on any of the objectives that were discussed early in this presentation will in fact contribute to one or even more of these priorities. So with that, Megan and crew, we have 10
entire minutes.
And I'm willing to hang around beyond that, although I'm sure that most of you will be done with my voice at 1. So
they also may have earned themselves a bit of a bio break between now and the end of their lunch period, because we got 2 questions throughout the webinar, and one of them was answered almost moments after he asked it. So it was about the breakdown of industry.
Okay.
Cynthia Price raised a really good point about CBOC, and that when you have a software product and you announce the next version, that pretty much regularly kills the current version that people don't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia asked.
So is that called shooting yourself in your own foot?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's okay.
Cynthia asks if we are solvent. I see it.
Would you like?
Did you want to?
Would you like to
elaborate?
Would you like to elaborate on?
Yeah, let me
on that, Megan.
Unmute Cynthia so she can ask any
follow-ups.
Cynthia?
Did I miss the slide where we show kind of the overview of the balance sheet? And I'm not even necessarily that interested in that level of detail, other than just the real answer to the question, are we solvent enough to keep this thing rolling?
We, if I may say so myself, we get better every year.
Excellent.
And, yeah, so Cynthia, I mean, good point. There was a conscious decision not to put that in, because I wanted to, I had a story I wanted to tell, but that's a very good question. And let me just say one other thing on that subject. In order to accomplish these priorities, we have to go beyond reliance, and I think I allude to this in the article in ICEAA World. I mean, I didn't say it today. We have to go beyond the world of volunteers. And the good news is we given the company, the association's financial health, we are in a position to make investments to get these things done. I alluded to the Quebec consulting effort. That was a funded effort. I mean, Megan, what was the dollar value of that work?
Of the work, the dollars.
The Quebec work.
That's not. We spent a good amount of money on that, and
okay.
We have more we're willing to spend on more advancements. We have some cash in reserves that we never had before. That amount of cash keeps getting better. They say just because we're a nonprofit, that doesn't mean we're not here to generate revenue. We are still a business, but the point of our revenue is to turn it back into the membership in the association. So the better we do, the better products and services we can provide for you. And we have really worked hard over the past few years to position ourselves to be able to do that.
And we are going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when we've had some money in past years, my perspective from where I was sitting on the board was there seemed to be a lot of reticence about spending money. Now, we obviously want to spend it smartly, but we're in a position to do that, and we're going to do that, Cynthia. Yes.
We have another question about the status of the journal.
Oh, yes. Megan, would you like to?
Sure. Do you want me to, shall I allow our asker?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. So Bill Barfield, get ready. You're about to have a mic. Bill, hit it.
Yeah, just that. Afternoon. Thanks, Rick. Good conference. Megan, thanks for hosting. Status of the journal. You know, I've been ramrodding it for a while since the last board meeting, May, and it was in your hands last we chatted. Where are we going with defining how we are going to publish professional journals?
I would say the answer is to be determined. We have a lot of discussion and a lot of debate to do. There's good arguments on both sides, and both of those sides need to voice them. And we as a board, well, I'm not actually on the board, but our board needs to make a decision that, you know, weighs everything. This is kind of a can of worms. So for those of you who either missed it in the beginning, our journal wasn't being published at the rate that we thought it was, and we've ceased our relationship with our publisher, and we are in the process of assessing what to do next.
Sounds about right.
Thanks, Bill.
I got one question that I will say that I was also hoping to answer myself, and at 56, I kind of want to end on a sales pitch, if you're all right with that. Don't forget, everyone who's listening, the abstract submission deadline for the San Antonio workshop is November 5. That is no longer a faraway distant date in the fall. It is the fall now. That is, what, 2.5 months away. It's only 75 words that you need to send us by November 5, so you don't have to be done, but you got to be thinking about it. And there's a whole bunch of steps that happen after the abstracts come in. I know it feels like it's too early, but you know, it's as late as we can make it. So if you want to take the stage at all in San Antonio, get those abstracts in by November 5.
Thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
So are we about to sign off here?
I would think so, yeah.
You think so? All right. Well, for those of you that are left on the line, thanks again for taking the time, and I urge you to not hesitate to reach out to me.
Or me.
rcollins@technomics.net. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.